All right, Cliff. So Esports United is Sweden's largest grassroots organization. How did that happen?
Well, it's a long story, but let's make it short. Well, it's actually maybe not a difficult thing to explain. I mean, if you're the only one existing, people are drawn to you. That's the simple answer. The more difficult answer would be that Esport United have a lot of different type of organizations connected to it. So it's not like we're an umbrella kind of NGO. So we have a lot of different organizations beneath us that actually do the great work. I talked about one of the larger one is publicly. We have some that Brian, you talked about, like Victor, that he is running one organization called the Phoenix Blue. A lot of these organizations have a lot of members. They do a lot of activities, and they make us shine. I would say they are the stars of the show, and they make esport what it is, and they help us get so many members. And also the wonderful funding we get from the government to actually support their activities. And this goes, quite far back. I mean, it goes back to when Esport United started and the reason by it. And like I mentioned here about the female gaming scene and how it started with female gaming. And that's actually how Esport United got started, with going back to actually a female news website called Femina Gaming. And this was actually the first female gaming news site in the world, I think, most likely. And this was run by now a woman called Lilja. And when I was starting like I told you earlier about the Sister United League, that was actually something we started simultaneously. And then eventually she told me that, oh, sorry, I don't have the energy to kind of continue doing this. And then we joined their names. And if we joined Femina Gaming and Sisters United, what do we get? We got Esport United when we kind of put everything together and jumbled the words together. And that's how it started. So actually, you could say that Esport United is a female esport organization from the beginning, run by a man, which makes it quite hilarious in a way. Why would I do that? I mean, and that's another funny story. Of course, you got all the comments, why you're doing this? Are you trying to hit on girls and stuff like that? Actually, I never dated anyone in the esports scene, but I think. Hope I don't forget anyone.
Live back on track. Story of Esport United.
Oh, yes. Wow, yeah. So the organization started back then, and we came from the esport kind of base, and that's how we started. And we grow quite slowly in the beginning. We were 1,000 members. We're doing activities at DreamHack, which is Sweden's biggest LAN, and I think maybe the world's biggest LAN. Look, Brian, he's a fan of that. That's actually closed down right now because of COVID. I'm sorry. Yeah, he wanted to go so badly. He wanted to bring you, Steph, or maybe you've been there. I don't know. No, not yet. So we started actually with doing like tournaments at DreamHack. We did female tournaments. We did the different time, and that was a big thing. Actually, we focused on areas that other organizations didn't care about. Maybe games that are a little bit off, or scenes that no one cares about. So we were very big at female tournaments, and we have done quite a few female tournaments, and we have done like console gaming. We're quite big at VR gaming and tournaments. We built flight simulators that we could actually, very advanced kind of machines that are very cool with 360 kind of viewing and stuff, like very, very exciting and special things that actually just are aimed for nerds, I would say. And this attracted a lot of wonderful people and maybe some special people also. That has been the basis for our team and our crew, and are still with us to get today. I mean, the people in charge have been with us for a very long time, and that's actually also maybe the trust that we have given the esports scene, that teams have joined us, organizations have joined us, of course for the financial support, but also that we are the oldest, we are the most stable one, and we have existed forever in the esports scene, more or less, since we started. And Esport United started in 2010 or 11 or something like that. And we got government funding in 2012, if I remember correctly. So it's been quite successful. And today, like I said before, we have wonderful organizations and teams that are with us. And like you said, Brian, before, Justice in Jönköping University is one that actually applied just recently, if I remember correctly, to Esport United, and will be one other team and the first university, right? Yes, university teams that will join us, and that's fantastic. And we help to support their journey, and also to help create more university teams in the future.
So what you do is you are the almost figurehead of all the smaller grassroots organizations in Sweden. And for people who wouldn't be familiar with Swedish government, there's a lot of funding available under the branch of culture. And sport is a separate thing, by the way. Yeah. So you guys operate under the cultural branch of Swedish government, which Sweden is very good at supporting. And you guys kind of almost apply for the money, get the money, and then help the other organizations in getting funding, achieving what they want, and stuff like that. So what would you say are the overarching goals of Esports United?
Yeah. Of course, supporting the NGOs that are beneath us in the umbrella kind of hierarchy. But we also focus on the different things to kind of make the community grow and evolve. And especially, like most recently, we've been working with like disabled disabled people who play esports. This has been quite close to all our hearts on the board in the Esport United, and the people in the crew working. We put down quite a lot of focus, and we're working with the Swedish Youth Disabled Association to create projects where they can share ideas on how to play depending on different types of disabilities. And this has been quite an extraordinary and a very exciting way to kind of get these people into esports. And this has been something that's been very important for us. And together with this, we've also worked very, very hard with supporting different types of youth leagues and amateur leagues that have been very strong within our organization. And together with that, we're now running a project with another organization that I don't think I'm allowed to talk about who it is, but how can we help the teams? We talked a lot about the teams before, that how can someone help them support? How can we help them grow? And we have actually produced a plan how to support them. The teams have a lot of problems. I mean, especially I also had a team that I ran in like few different computer games called Crowns Esport Club, which got quite some semi-famous in Sweden and had some international success. So from that experience, I mean, I gained a lot of knowledge about how and what teams need to actually grow. And the problem most teams have today is also staying together. I mean, there's a lot of people breaking up, moving to different teams. There's not a lot of trust or not a lot of camaraderie between them. So what we want to do is create an identity. We want the teams to get their own logotype. We want them to get their name. We want to give them a jersey with their logo on, to make them proud of the team they're in. So it means that I don't want to leave immediately, because there's something, we have some items, we have some merchandise, we have something that connects us. Maybe I will leave, but maybe not everyone, as people will stay together and keep the identity of the team and the name, and that will make it maybe last a little bit longer. So that's one part of what we're doing. And we also want to help them through different types of sponsors to get them to get them gears, especially for some individuals who might not have the financing to get the best mouse, or maybe their computer screen breaks, or maybe their headset doesn't work on one side, they only have sound on the right side. Oh no, he's coming from the right side, let's use there. No, it's left side. So we're helping them to get this type of equipment. So that's an important part. And then the last one, Brian, you like to go to DreamHack, but these kids, they cannot go in. They have to buy the tickets. They have to travel from all over Sweden. How can they pay for this? There's a lot of money to go into DreamHack, and a lot of money to travel and to compete in different lands and tournaments around in Sweden. And to create and keep people together, they have to also have experiences together to build trust and build the teams. And so what we're going to do is we're going to support teams with travel expenses. And last but not least, is, like in ordinary sports and traditional sports, you have a football field, you have a tennis court, but do you have an esport court? You have to go to a place, maybe IT cafe, maybe a gaming center, something like that. They're not available everywhere. I mean, in Sweden, there are quite few nowadays. I mean, most of them are closed down. So we are working on creating different centers available throughout Sweden with a few partners to set up places where they can go and practice for free. And this is the important part, to actually build the communities and build the teams. And this is something that we're working for a lot right now.
So I've got a question. What do you do with the high schools here? I know you're going to work with justice and stuff, but what are some of the initiatives you're doing? Because I know we have a lot of programs in Sweden now, official esports programs as physical education, as their PE. So can you tell us a bit about that and what Esports United does with these programs and these schools and these coaches?
Yeah, so we have a lot of organizations that are within Esport United actually work with a lot of high school. Now you talked about justice, that's university level stuff, and we're working with a lot of different. In Sweden, I don't know how it is in the States, in the UK, and Ireland and stuff like that, but we have a lot of the high schools that actually make it available for players to practice esports, and we have a lot of cooperations with several high schools around Sweden. And we give them support to create the teams and get the support, like I talked about before, like the support of travel and identity and all of this. So that the connection we have there is giving support. But we also have something especially interesting for people going from high school, because the high school is quite organized and works quite well, and it's a growing industry in Sweden. But when you go to university, you have another problem, is that since we don't have these university teams, we have to discuss like how do we get people who play esports? Maybe you don't go to university because you're playing esports. You want to put 100% on that. And that's a problem in many countries. I mean, maybe what happens if you're not successful in esports? I mean, 99.9% will not make money from it. They will be in debt. I mean, so that's why we started a program together with other high school university in Halmstad in Sweden. So they create something that's called, directly translated, would say like double careers, I guess would be the best translation. And that's a way of creating opportunities to play esports while you have academic studies at a higher level. So that gives you, simplifies, if you need to travel to competitions, if you need to have extra time to do some seminary work, or you need to do some exams, or you need to do essays, you can get more time, you can be more flexible. And this is an important part to increase the academic level, and also to help something that's quite big in esports that maybe people don't talk that much about, and it's about depression, it's about loneliness. A lot of people hide in esports. I mean, esports is it's escape for some from the real world, and some do it, of course, because they want to play and they want to compete. But especially in gaming, I mean, this could be a problem that, I mean, the attention of this area is increasing, of course, and the research also. But what we have discovered also in traditional sports is that if you focus on one sport and maybe you actually become a success or like semi-professional, and you try to and you play for years and you have quite good results, but then when your career is over, what are you now? You're gonna become a taxi driver, or I have no education, I don't know anything else. I can become a coach, but not every sportswoman can become a coach in everything. So I think this type of programs like double careers in academia is very important to give them a continuation. And this can actually be very helpful for the esport in general, all over the world. And I think most universities should make this a possibilities. And I hope it's going to be bigger than it is today. That they can study maybe psychology, they can sports management, and connect this with their biggest interest as esports. And when they're done with the career, or maybe the career never take off, but they have so in-depth knowledge, they use the academic education to benefit esport and also work with something that they love. So this is one of the projects that especially Esport United are working with and supporting.
And you work with like other smaller organizations in these specific areas. Like, you know, I can think of an example is Prima Esports, right?
Yeah.
You work with Prima, and they're about preventing toxicity within esports and bullying and stuff like that. So what Esports United do is you know, help these organizations to achieve their goals. Would that be what the purpose is?
Yes, I would say. I mean, some organizations were more hands-on and some more hand-off. I mean, some of the organizations work quite well by themselves, and our support are, like in Prima, it's mostly connections and economical and financial support. They're quite a well-organized foundation that do their own stuff quite well. So I think, and there's a lot of organizations like that are actually popping up all over Sweden when it comes to this type of social gathering and trying to help for this kind of bullying and harassment, and also depression and psychology and stuff like that. So yeah, this is the way we support them in that case. And we have a lot of other organizations that work with the same kind of subjects or kind of differentiate a little bit from it. And most of our work in Esport United is that we want to give the organizations out there that feel that maybe we need a financial support, or maybe we need a connection with a government entity or a municipal, or we need to maybe grow, maybe we need a place to be at. And this is where we can help, because we have had these connections for, like we said, like 10 years. We have made some progress in these areas, and we know the people to talk to. And this is why we think these organizations would benefit to kind of join Esport United, or at least, you know, just talk to us and see, can we help you guys with anything? You don't even have to become members. We don't demand membership. We demand partnership. we want to create cooperations. And we're not about owning things. The only thing you get for joining us is support, and actually we don't require you to give us anything special to back.
Very nice. I love some of these initiatives that you're working on. I think access is so critical, you know, whether that's having a place to play or the technology to play. You know, I think there's research, and a lot of my work looks at this, but especially along gender and racial lines, right? Like who has access to those resources becomes a strong dictatorship of who then we see represented in the collegiate and professional scene. So mad props for doing that. Yeah. So, I mean, what do you want to see happen in Sweden around esports and grassroots as a whole?
Well, I think what we would need is parents to be engaged in their children's gaming, to help them grow and ask questions. That's one part. What are you playing? What are you doing? Can I support you somehow? I mean, this is very important in all sports, and also all parenting, to be active in their kids' interests. And this is like I said before, a generational problem, knowledge problem. Of course, how can we help? Can Esport United do something? Could we have educational campaigns to help parents? How should I integrate, and how should I talk to my kid about esports? And how can I help? I think most parents are willing and want to help and want to be engaged, but they don't know how. And I would say that's one problem, that maybe we have not engaged as much as we should. And maybe as an esport community in all of Sweden and all the world, not enough has been done on that side for us that are closing up to the age or have kids. We have the knowledge, we know what actually is needed, but we're busy with other things. So I think that's an important part to actually make the esport community grow. We also need the organizations. Maybe we're talking about schools in some countries. Maybe we're talking about clubs. Maybe we're talking about the different cities supporting different teams. In Sweden, we have something called fritidsgårdar. So these are youth meetup locations. I don't know, Brian, if you have a better word for it, if you know what fritidsgårdar is.
No, my Swedish is so bad.
All right. Well, now you have learned a new word, and it's fritidsgårdar. So this is a place where you go after school or during school. I mean,
After school clubs.
After school club. That sounds good. So this after school clubs, I mean, this is also something, actually a project we tried a couple of years ago, but we got declined for getting funding for creating, joining different kinds of after school clubs. and converting them into esport areas where actually people don't play ping pong where they do right now, or table tennis, and they can have like a few computers where they can play esports, because that's what the kids want to do, most of them at least. We tried to convert this, but this was, well, the government didn't think that was a good idea. So unfortunately, but this is something, I think this is something that we have all over Sweden, these clubs, and they are an important part where they could create teams and help teams to start up, and also create these youth organizations. How do I create a team? How do I hold it together? Since we don't have this culture at the moment in Sweden. And if we get esport into the national sport associations, I think this will be then funded in a different way. They will need help to kind of find corporations around Sweden. Maybe they will go to the schools. Maybe they will go to these clubs and ask them to say, how can we use you guys to create these esports centers all over Sweden? Because we need places where these kids can play, so they can grow up and also be educated. How do you act towards your opponent? How do you act towards a person that might not have the same background as yourself, or not the same gender? I mean, the toxicity that we talked about is quite great in esport. I mean, it's quite terrible. And it's, of course, because you can hide behind your screen. You don't know who you really are. You can say whatever you want, more or less, even if it's illegal. So I think it's important that the parents are engaged. I think these clubs need to be created in Sweden to help, of course, teach them how do you act when you're playing sports. If you play traditional sports, no coach would allow you to tell your opponent that it's beep, 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 beep. I mean, that would not be acceptable. The parents will be immediately informed, and maybe they will be expelled from the team. This cannot happen in esport right now, but this is an important part for the community to grow and also be accepted, and also become a real sport where people can engage together. So, important part.
So Cliff, what I get the impression is it's esports is happening. Kids are playing games. And the work of Esports United is to provide a platform for this to be done well, to maximize it, to build cultures, to support something that's going to happen, that is happening. So it's not like you're suddenly rushing in there and saying, here's esports. What you're actually doing is saying, this is the world. This is the biggest thing with the majority of young people today, which I love. And we want to help make it all better. And we want to support and see it done properly. And we want to see it done well. And that's that's the best thing. That's what I love about Grassroots, because I love researching Grassroots. I love researching Birdie, Land, the local actors here in Jönköping. That's what I love. I love the people. I love Female Legends. I love Prima. I love you guys. I love Forbundant. That's what really, makes me happy about esports, this sense of community and doing good. So that's our last question here. We usually ask researchers what are their future research recommendations. And when someone's not a researcher, what we ask is, what would you like to see researched? What would you like researchers to investigate? What sort of support would you like? Where would you send all these different researchers and all these different disciplines? What would you like to send them out with a research grant to do?
Well, I would like to answer in two ways. Also, I want to get to how can you help the esport community to communicate what actually you know and what you have researched. I mean, this is an important part. Right now, I know you have some seminars and you have had meetings all over. I mean, you're going to different places in different countries to do this sort of thing.
Well, we used to.
Well, maybe we can help with it too. I'm here. Here's my hand. Take it.
Take it.
To actually what areas? I mean, there are interesting areas that I like personally. I like the physiology and like all this brain, kind of how the brain works when you play games and stuff like that. But what I would like to know might be, how does it work? How have different countries started with esport, and how have they integrated into society, so we can learn from other places how they have done it. To get today, I mean, I know Sweden. I don't know what they did in Denmark. I don't know what they do in Germany, but I would like someone to see how did they do it, and was it successful? Was it bad? Was it good? I don't know. so we can learn from others' mistakes or other success stories. These type of research, for me and from Esport United, are interesting, so we can continue growing on other people's experiences, and maybe we can share something. And if I go back to like the information that you guys can provide that are invaluable, I would say I would love to be able to get this out to the teams, to the players, to the organizations like Esport United, and I also wanted to give out to the esport companies and also the entrepreneurs that will be in esports, if they can get the bright idea that you will tell them, well, this is something we see is going in this direction. And I will say, wow, I can make a few billions here in 10 years. I mean, that's why, I mean, you are the one who creates the company and entrepreneurial ideas. That is also something that I think is very attractive. And this is something that we talked about before. I want to create a meetup in Sweden, hopefully in other countries as well, but we have to start somewhere, and we have the financial backing to do it right now. And I think this is an awesome idea, and we have the backing of the Esport United board to do this, and it's to bring the researchers, we bring the companies, we bring the organizations, we bring the teams, we bring the players that are interested to have a meetup where they can talk, they can evolve, and they can learn from each other, as well as the researchers, and also from the teams and the companies. And you guys, who are the expert at doing the research and have the know-how, can learn from these type of entities. What do they want to know? What do we need to grow? What does this company want to know to actually evolve their business model? And maybe they will give you some personal private funding to do that. I mean, that would be awesome for you guys. So I hope this can be arranged, and I hope this can be arranged all over the world to create a bigger esport community.
Fantastic.
Awesome. Yeah, I love that idea too of dialogue, right? We talk so often about how there's a disconnect between academia and industry. And I think a lot of it is not knowing what each other wants, right? If we talk to industry about what kind of things would be useful to you, right? Not saying we want to be beholden to them and let them dictate everything we do, but I think there is, there's benefit, right, to working together and cooperating more. So I love that. Yeah. Well, Cliff, thank you so much for being here with us today. This was a fantastic conversation. Really excited and geeked about all the things that y'all are doing. I think that's really awesome. As a woman gamer too, I'm really attracted to the idea that it had its roots in sort of a feminist revolution in gaming, if you will. Yeah, so that's great. So thanks again, Cliff, for being here. And for everybody who's watching this, we're going to include links to Esports United, to any of Cliff's social media that he wants to share, so you can all be in contact and find out more about Esports United's mission. And yeah, Cliff, thanks again for hanging out with us today.
Thank you for listening to me. Thanks.
Thanks, Cliff.
Seven,